Hello, everybody. It's Friday, August the 1st, 2025. Happy August, everyone. We haven't done a That Was the Week tech roundup for almost a month. Last time we did it was on July the 5th, where we talked about scaling or dying, a classic Silicon Valley kind of conversation. Keith Teare, my friend and colleague on That Was the Week, the publisher of the That Was the Week newsletter, was in Italy. I was in Africa, but we are back now. I spent July mostly having fun, ignoring technology. 2 or 3 pieces, though, I found intriguing. An interesting piece in the Washington Post about the intensified battle for talent, housing, and investment in San Francisco through AI. San Francisco is back, I'm thrilled to announce. Surprise, surprise. And also an interesting piece from Rana Furuha from the Financial Times about the coming crypto crisis, which I think is inevitable. My favorite interview of the month on Keen on America was one with a really interesting Israeli economic historian, Dror Poleg, on AI. So, Keith, what have you been doing in July? I know you were in Italy, enjoying yourself in a luxury villa in Tuscany, but you've also been doing a lot of reading, probably a bit too much. What's been happening on the tech front?
I never stop reading, Andrew, as you know, and it's almost always clustered into the same big picture issues. I think you could summarize my reading in some headlines, which would be, I don't know, the rise of the consumer AI would be a big one. I think the ever increasing valuation of the AI companies would be another big headline. I think China rising, the launch of Kimi K2, is yet more evidence that China's AI models are going to be contenders on the world stage, was a big thing. The decline of small venture funds and the rise of a very small number of humongous venture funds has continued. So it's pretty much the same themes as a month ago, but accelerated and exaggerated.
As always, which, as you know, I think you tend to do a little bit, exaggerating, especially valuations. Before we went live, you suggested to me that you didn't think it was unrealistic that OpenAI might be worth $10 trillion and Anthropic worth about $4 trillion. These are absurd numbers, Keith, aren't they?
Well, valuations always have to be grounded in numbers.
So valuations are by definition numbers, so that goes without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they're not detached from the real world. There has to be a forward projection from a current amount of revenue and profit to get to a number. So in the case of OpenAI, I think they're roughly at 20 billion in revenue now.
But is it profitable revenue?
I doubt it, because it would be stupid of them to keep money in the bank when they should really be spending it on more capacity. So I doubt they're profitable, but by design, it's not unprofitable because they can't make a profit. It's because they're choosing to grow.
Yeah, although they're prisoners, so to speak, of that. I mean, they have to invest more and more and more. That's one of the interesting things I found about my conversation with Dror Poleg. He talked about the electrifying truth of our algorithmic future, which is all about this obsession with power. It probably lends itself inevitably in the long run to nuclear power. I mean, 10 trillion, Keith, is absurd. I mean, what's the largest company in the world now in terms of valuation?
NVIDIA's at over 3 trillion.
So we're talking about more than 3 times the valuation of NVIDIA, which itself some people see as radically inflated.
Well, some people do, but they're wrong. I think Nvidia is going to grow as well. 3 trillion isn't the end, and others will follow that path. And it's all built upon multiples from revenue. So if OpenAI gets to 1 trillion in revenue,
which is 5 times what their current revenue is.
More than 5 times, 50 times.
Sorry, 50 times. Yeah, it's at 20 billion now.
Yeah. So, but they grow roughly 10x a year.
So where's the core revenue for OpenAI? Is it from the $20 a month consumer deal, or is it from other stuff?
Well, they've now got a $200 a month plan, which a lot of people have bought into. They also have API access, which is priced on a per token basis or per million tokens. So those are the two primary sources, from developers using their APIs and everyone else using subscription models. There's 4 billion smartphone owners in the world, all of which can download the ChatGPT client. So it isn't too much of a stretch to imagine that their revenue will keep growing at 10x annually, as long as they retain brand awareness in consumers' minds when it comes to AI. I think brand awareness is a huge plus for them.
One of the interesting pieces that you read in July, which is linked in your newsletter, is the AI search tipping point. Have we hit that tipping point? Are more and more people simply not searching anymore and using AI, mostly OpenAI or Anthropic?
More and more people are, but a lot of people still do use search. But increasingly, there is browsers built by companies other than Google. The latest is Comet from Perplexity, which you can only get if you're on their $200 plan. Or actually, I think it's $300 a month.
This is on Perplexity.
Yeah, and DIA, DIA, which you have to request. I've been accepted to it. And these are browsers where the search is AI-centric, and Google is only used if you explicitly ask for Google search. So there's an increasing trend away from web search. Even in Chrome, Google's AI section now dominates the page results for everyone. And of course, in the AI section, there are no blue links from advertisers. So that begs a very, very big question, which is, what is the business model for links in an AI world?
And we've talked about that a lot, and we're not entirely sure. Mark Reed, I think we talked about this last month. Mark Reed quit, or probably was pushed out of WPP because he couldn't figure out the AI economy. So for the advertising and marketing industries, it really is an existential event, isn't it?
It is, but I do think there's some common sense truths that people are skipping over due to the frenzy. I mean, a link is still valuable to the owner of the link. And most owners of links will pay for traffic using something called cost per action. That doesn't go away in an AI world. It really means links have to travel from search results into AI conversations. For that to happen, owners of valuable links, Amazon would be a great example with its products, those links need to show up in AI. And that will happen if Amazon will pay for the traffic that comes back. And so there's an obvious two-sided economy still. It just hasn't, the two sides haven't yet found each other.
To what extent, in your view, given this shift, and maybe we've reached the tipping point, maybe we're near the tipping point when it comes to AI search, how is it changing cultural habits? I mean, obviously, there's the issue of work, and there's been lots of pieces about how AI is now beginning to impact college graduates, drying up a lot of entry-level jobs, especially out of college. But how do you think it's changing our lives? I remember when the internet first came along and email, it changed our lives fairly quickly and dramatically.
Yeah.
I see the potential for AI on that front too, but I'm not seeing it as much, perhaps.
I think it comes down to behavior building. There's a whole curve of behavior adoption. At one end, some people aren't using AI at all. At the other end, it's
Most people still aren't, are they, Keith?
about 1 billion a month are. So yeah, you're right. About probably 25% of internet users are using AI regularly. So there's a lot of growth still to come. And I think those that use it all the time, I see it in my kids. You know, when we do fact checking, like we may be watching a soccer game and someone says, "How old is that player?" They used to do a Google search. Now they just ask ChatGPT or Claude.
But is that dramatically different? I mean, it's either asking Google or asking Claude or ChatGPT. I mean, it's not that big a deal, is it?
It's a big deal in aggregate for the business models of the people who used to get those queries before. So it's not a big deal for the user. It's just a better question interface, question and answer. It takes me back to Ask Jeeves when they tried to do questions and answers and they were terrible at it. Well, now, you know, it's good.
Those were the days. Ask Jeeves. I'm sure most of our audience aren't even familiar with what that was as a pre. Well, how would you describe Ask Jeeves? Certainly pre-Google, but
yeah, they called it an answer engine instead of a search engine. You ask questions and got
and yet one of the other consequences of all this, I mean, you'd expect if we're reaching or getting close to the AI search tipping point, the AI economy dominated by Google, that Google's valuations would certainly be under threat, but it's not true. The Google numbers are very good, and the Google stock is doing pretty well. So when is this going to begin to hit valuations of traditional internet companies, or won't it?
I think the true answer is we don't know, but I think the likely answer is it might not. Google is in transformation right now. The revenue from Google Cloud is increasing, and Google Cloud is where all its AI brain sits. And usage from Google Cloud is going up from developers and to some extent from individuals. Like I use VO3 to make videos. It's my preferred video place. I don't use Gemini.
VO3. What kind of videos are you making with VO3?
The front pages of the newsletter, you've seen a couple of them. But anything, you can make anything. It's very good. I don't use Gemini because it isn't as good as Anthropic or OpenAI, and it certainly isn't as good as the Chinese ones. So, you know, I think Google's transitioning. I think its gross search revenue has not yet gone down, but the amount of money it gets per click has. And it's an open question which Google controls the answer to, how fast they replace search with AI. The faster they do it, the more their search revenue will shrink, but they get to manage that. So I think they're in a decent position.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic innovator's dilemma that Google is facing.
Yeah, but they seem to be doing a decent job of timing that and managing it.
The company that seems under most threat and is least well equipped to deal with this revolution, the big tech company, is Apple, isn't it?
Well, Apple has an unfair advantage in that it owns the user interface where you can use all of the AIs like OpenAI or Claude or Google.
Yeah, but I take that point, but Apple is much less prepared for this.
I think that's by choice. I think Apple recognizes that AI is a CapEx heavy enterprise right now. Why would they want to take on those costs when the iPhone keeps selling because it has all the other AIs built in? So if you're Apple, your revenue keeps going up because you're selling iPhones. Your own AI offering isn't as good as the incumbents. So why step into those waters prematurely and spend a lot of money failing? They'll do what they always do, which is they'll adopt very late and be very good when they do.
You've always been very bullish on OpenAI. You and I disagree on that. But one of the stories that seems to be emerging over the last month, at least, is of Anthropic. I use Anthropic, and I find it very good. I'm less able than you to do a kind of A to B comparison, so I can't compare OpenAI with Anthropic, but it's very good from my point of view. Are you surprised with Anthropic's massive valuation, this latest round, the kind of attention that Dario Amodei is getting? I mean, usually in these spaces, you have a winner-take-all economy where Google won search, Amazon won e-commerce, Facebook won social media. Is it conceivable that both OpenAI and Anthropic will win over AI?
Look, I think Anthropic is the best model for most things. So your
Best in
experience,
the sense it's the most reliable, easiest to use.
it can do more things at a level of excellence that beats everyone else. It's the bar that the Chinese models seek to emulate when they do their testing. So Anthropic's at the very top, especially for coding, but it's also good with agents. Claude Code, their developer app, now has something called sub agents, and you can build really impressive stuff with it. So it is the best. It doesn't have the most well-known brand, which is why OpenAI is so much bigger. But its current valuation is, driven by a revenue of around 4 billion now. So if you divide the valuation, I can't remember what the valuation was actually in my head, but if you divide it by 4 billion, that's the multiple.
I think it was about 150 billion.
Right. So, it's roughly a 40x revenue, which is big, but not crazy in the current climate.
And to what extent is this rivalry between OpenAI and Anthropic? Of course, a lot of the people from Anthropic came from OpenAI, including Amodei. To what extent is it being financed and driven by the other great tech powers? Amazon and Google in particular are major investors in Anthropic. And of course, we all know the politics of OpenAI, its complicated relationship with Microsoft.
Less and less driven by those investors, because more and more of the money is coming from traditional investment sources, but historically completely bootstrapped by Amazon and Google in the early days, which is kind of interesting, right? Why they would do that. I think it was because they were not in the game really then. They're a little bit more in the game now in the case of Amazon, and a lot more in the game for Google, and arguably competitive. By the way, almost every vibe coding app sits on top of Anthropic, not OpenAI. So Anthropic is really the sum of all of the vibe coding apps as well, like Cursor and Windsurf and the others. Just because it's good, and it's not going away. It's not going to be sold. It's going to be a big company, probably a half, somewhere between a quarter and a half the size of OpenAI, mainly due to brand awareness and then lack of consumer adoption that leads to.
Yeah, and I hope there's a journalist out there, I'm sure there is, who's writing a book comparing Amodei and Altman. There already was the Supremacy book last year focusing on Altman and his rivalry with the Google AI guy. Is the difference between Amodei and Altman significant? Amodei at Anthropic has been getting a lot of press for an internal memo he sent to Anthropic people about getting money from the Gulf, suggesting that he was ambivalent about taking, if not dirty money, immoral money from, or money from regimes that he considered nasty, like the Saudis.
Yeah, I think Amodei, personality-wise, is closer to Musk than Altman. He's very opinionated. He's prepared to say his opinions out loud, even when they're unpopular. He's very convinced that general intelligence is around the corner, and that 20% of white collar jobs will be gone by the end of the decade. So he doesn't believe in what Zuckerberg is doing, which is paying inordinately large sums to attract talent. He's holding the line on what a reasonable salary is. So he's pretty opinionated. There's a very good interview with him by Alex Kantrowitz.
Yeah, in the list, it was really exceptional. And then speaking of Facebook, they've been getting a lot of press this month on these massive amounts of money they're paying individual AI programmers in the billions sometimes. Are they an also run, or are they a real player?
Sorry, who did you ask about again? Sorry,
Facebook.
Facebook.
You've heard of them, right?
Facebook is in crisis when it comes to AI. Their Llama model, most recent Llama model, failed to impress. The Chinese models came out and were better than it, and were both open source and what's called open weight, so you could use them for training your own models. Zuckerberg panicked and started paying large sums to hire talent, which he succeeded in. And that talent's focus is now super intelligence, which is a vaguely defined status. And I think he's replaced hubris with real execution. And it's an open question whether he can execute through it. We'll see. I mean, they're very smart people, and maybe they will, but they're nowhere close now.
That's interesting. So these huge bonuses he's paying are a kind of panic response to the fact that they're falling behind Anthropic and OpenAI. What about all the Facebook discourse about being open source? Is that more Zuck talk?
Well, there's now internal questioning of how smart that is. I don't have any insight there as to where those conversations are, but certainly previously it was a given that they were going to be open source. If they do produce super intelligence, which is defined that the AI is better than any human at anything, then maybe they will try to monetize that. Certainly their history would suggest they will. The one thing they do have that others don't is this universe of links due to their advertising platform. So they are in a good position to have a business model for AI. But OpenAI this last couple of weeks talked about shopping as a focus, and for that you need all the links. Facebook and Google both have those links.
And what about your old friend Elon Musk, who has had a tricky summer, to be polite, euphemistic? He's had a very tough time over the last couple of months in every sense. I think he's folded X back into XAI. Is he also a player, or is that in crisis like Facebook?
He's a huge player with his own sandbox. If you add the Twitter stream with all of the links in the stream, with Grok, which is the XAI product, which he just put into Teslas, by the way. So I now drive my Tesla. I can have a conversation with Grok as I drive, whilst the car drives itself.
Charming, Keith.
So he's in his own toy box, but it's a very, very impressive toy box. Grok 4, launched a couple of weeks ago, is excellent at everything, really good, and therefore has to be seen as a contender.
Contender with Anthropic and OpenAI?
Yes, because like OpenAI, he does have a consumer brand. And so it's almost the only competitor that I'd be worried about if I was OpenAI.
But then Facebook also has that consumer brand.
Not for AI. It's not, people don't use Facebook for AI at all.
Can you use AI within, I'm not on Facebook, but what AI is on offer within Facebook or Instagram?
You can go into a chat session and talk to an AI agent on WhatsApp or Facebook chat, Facebook messages. They use it internally in other ways, but the consumer-facing piece, you have to explicitly ask to talk to AI as opposed to one of your friends.
Are we in, Keith, a full-scale boom? You and I have lived through these before. Certainly in the late 90s was remarkable. I live in San Francisco, as you know, so I was particularly struck by the fact that suddenly San Francisco is hot again. It's been very cold for a while. Intensification of the battle for talent, housing, and investments in San Francisco. Suddenly real estate prices are very high. It's impossible to get rentals. Are we back to the late 90s in this sense? I don't know what it's like in Palo Alto.
No, San Francisco is an unusually big winner in the AI revolution because it's the center. Once again, it's where the talent and the money converge, plus the legal talent, everything really. So people are moving back and renting places, hence the rising rents. And you would imagine property prices will go up, although the prediction in the long run is that once you have robots that can build houses, property prices will tend towards zero.
Well, except you've got to have the land for those houses. What about the people who left San Francisco? Your old friend, co-founder of TechCrunch, Mike Arrington, lots of others, they all threw their marbles out, if this is the wrong metaphor, mixed metaphor, threw their marbles out of their prams and went to Austin or Miami. Are they all coming back now?
They probably won't, because although Keith Rabois is back a lot more than he used to be, working now again, for Khosla, I think. I forget where he went, but he's come back somewhere he was before. The Arrington, no, because he's a Web3 guy and he's totally happy, I think, in Miami. I don't expect to see Mike back anytime soon. I think where it's Web3 focused, and a lot of that exodus was.
And when we talk about Web3, you're really talking about crypto.
Crypto. Then I don't think it's coming back. I think everything AI is going to be here.
It's astonishing, really, after all the talk of the crisis in San Francisco and of other innovation hubs, we're back to where we began.
Well, there was a big political dimension as well. Many of the exodus were Republicans, self-declared, who hated the local authority here that was allowing homelessness and such. There's been some change there. The last elections replaced a lot of the administration. And Gary Tan has been very active in that. So I think
Ron Conway as well.
And Ron Conway. So I think the political reasons for leaving have subsided, at least, and the economic reasons for staying or coming back have grown.
And Anthropic is based here as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where are Anthropic and OpenAI? Where are their offices?
OpenAI is in Menlo Park. Anthropic, I don't know.
You should ask it.
Anthropic offices are, let's ask it. Claude, come to me.
I hope Claude knows where he's based. Otherwise, he may not have a job.
Anthropic located physically? San Francisco.
And then I also noted, Keith, that I read the Furuha piece on the coming crypto crisis. You're much more skeptical on coming crises of technology, but isn't it inevitable that there's going to be a crash of crypto at some point?
Well, I think the crypto crisis is relative to the viewer. If you're a bank, crypto is already a crisis for you. this Genius Act that made stable coins legal in the US, as long as they're domiciled here, is a massive shift to how money will be transmitted in the future. I think the rise of stablecoins through the Genius Act, and there's the Clarity Act, which hasn't passed yet, but probably will, which gives status to other cryptocurrencies, is creating the legal basis for a multi-asset world. There is a belief the dollar will benefit massively from this Genius Act because people around the world will buy US stablecoins as a way of avoiding their own local currencies. And those will all be denominated in dollars. So everyone who buys a stable coin, the seller will get $1 to back it. So dollars will also grow. So it's a very complex set of variables, which leads me to think that it's highly unlikely there'll be a crash in crypto, more likely the opposite.
And is the crypto boom then, which it is a boom, and the AI boom, are they in parallel or are they bound up with one another?
They're totally separate, I would say. They could come together through software, but no one's really made that happen yet.
But a crypto crash would be more dangerous for the global economy than an AI crash.
Well, I think as long as stablecoins backed by dollars grow, there almost can only be a crypto crash if there's a dollar crash first.
Which wouldn't be a good development.
And it's not very likely to happen now, I think. I was pretty, bearish on the dollar until the Genius Act. I think now in the short term, at least, the dollar's going to get stronger. It has been getting weaker against other currencies.
Very briefly for our viewers and listeners, Keith, who are not as familiar with a lot of this stuff as you are, what is the Genius Act?
The Genius Act passed both houses and was signed by Trump a couple of weeks ago. And it basically gives legal status to stable coins as long as a couple of things are true. Number one is there's a 1-for-1 backing with US dollars. And number two, that they're domiciled here in the US for auditing purposes. As long as those things are true, and there's a lot of other detail I'm missing out, stable coins are valid, just like any currency, and are not considered securities. And the SEC can't punish people who create them. So it's giving legal status. The Clarity Act is a similar act pertaining to non-stable coins, to all other tokens, not to Bitcoin because it's already got status, but to all the others.
And is this enabling the emergence, if not completely, of a grifter kind of economy? Trump and his family are major investors and pioneers of this. His critics see this as simply his opportunity to get even richer and more powerful.
The Clarity Act could help there. Again, it hasn't passed yet, so not yet. The Genius Act doesn't really. What the Genius Act does, imagine you own Trump coin and you sell it for a USDC stable coin. Well, then your Trump coin dollars, let's say you have $1 million in Trump coin, becomes $1 million of USDC. That $1 million of USDC has actual dollars in the bank backing it. And if you have a wallet with the right company, like say Coinbase, you can sell your USDC for actual dollars and put them into your bank account using a normal wire transfer. So the Genius Act creates the ability of money to flow between regular currency, stable coins, and other tokens.
Yeah, I have to admit, and as you know, I'm much more skeptical of crypto than I am of AI, but of course, we shall see. So we'll go back to regular weekly shows next week, Keith, but what should we be looking for in the next 6 months? We've talked about the great tech power coming conflict between OpenAI and Anthropic. We've talked about the other big players, Facebook, Google. AI, XAI. What will you be looking for in a kind of superstructural sense? If we have this conversation in 6 months, what are the key metrics and developments?
Well, the biggest weakness of AI is it's only capable of learning on unstructured data. That is to say, content, or images, or noise, or sound. Most of the world's important information is held in databases and is structured. That is to say, it's tabular. One of the things that happened while we were away is Scale AI was acquired, and Surge AI, which is an equivalent, has got a huge valuation. And these are companies that do what's called labeling of unstructured data. It's human labeling prior to training. Well, database content is already labeled by definition because it's got a purpose, and each row in a database is a record for something. So I think one of the big things to keep an eye on is whether AI can start to learn from structured data. If it can, real-time intelligence becomes possible. Like, for example, what is the traffic like at a certain intersection right now would come from structured data. Or what is the current stock price of Google would come from structured data, but not just structured, real-time structured. That isn't available in search engines because they crawl and index with time gaps, and it is not currently available in AI. So I think AI becoming capable of real-time intelligence from databases, keep an eye on that. I don't know who will crack that because it's a non-trivial problem. If that happens, by the way, links in AI become easy. You could just take the Amazon database with all of its products and metadata and links, learn from it, and when a user is asking to buy something, you could surface the right link for it right inside the AI. Without structured data, you can't do that. Certainly not easily, and you'll be wrong a lot. So I think that's a big area for growth. The second thing is this definition of AGI. There's a lot of rumors that GPT-5 is coming. Microsoft's ownership of OpenAI rests on AGI not being declared. The minute it is declared, Microsoft's ownership changes.
Who formally declares it, though? It's such a subjective term.
Well, interestingly, Microsoft certainly believe that OpenAI can do that because they're now renegotiating the terms of the contract with OpenAI to still have a future after AGI is declared. And that leads a lot of people to believe that ChatGPT-5 will declare that it is AGI.
Whatever that means. And of course, the one thing that's missing from this is your old friend Lina Khan. I thought when you talked about data that you were going to talk about regulation. Is it now? Is this AI revolution essentially unregulated?
Funnily enough, she made a statement yesterday that the Democratic Party could learn a lot from the New York mayoral candidate who won the primary.
Who's someone I'm sure you'll be voting for, Q.
He's very much pro-regulation. He's an interesting character, but it's almost exactly Lina Khan doubling down on all the mistakes she made in the past.
And there is a constituency. I mean, Mamdani beat Cuomo, so he has a constituency in New York, and there is a constituency for that kind of thinking in the Bay Area too.
So there is, yeah. I just think he'll end up in a car crash, but let's see.
Who? The regular car crash or a metaphorical one?
A metaphorical one. The point you made, though, the regulation point. Look, the American government has now agreed that AI will not be regulated, that they will err on the side of no regulation. The Supreme Court is allowing states to overrule that and do state-level rules, which will end up being a nightmare. But that's where we're at. In response to that, the EU has backed off from its AI Act and is reconsidering. So the wind is blowing against regulation of AI right now.
Which is why you're in a good mood, isn't it? You don't like regulation.
I like some regulation. I'm glad there's traffic lights and, you can turn right on a red light.
And then last but not least, China. You talked about one of the big themes in the first 6 months of the year, the rise of China. How important is the rise of Chinese AI in the context of OpenAI theoretically being worth 10 trillion and Anthropic being worth 5 trillion? Is this a winner-take-all economy, or can both Chinese and US companies win?
The dominant narrative is all about winning the AI war, which suggests that it is a winner take all, but it really isn't. AI is, the equivalent of the cloud. Nobody won the cloud. The cloud has lots of winners.
Or the internet.
And nobody's going to win AI. There's going to be lots of players equally, capable, some better than others, winning business and consumer mindshare. And China is clearly going to be one of those. China writ large is going to be one of those, but lots of individual companies in China are going to be part of that. So the idea that David Sacks promulgates, that the American stack has to win the AI war, that whole framing is only valid if you see it as fractional success as opposed to absolute success.
And of course, Sacks himself, he's still close to the Trump people, but they don't seem to be really shaping Trump policy on AI.
No, I think they do, actually. I think Sacks is in the driving seat. He gave an interview just now on CNBC today that he is driving an agenda. Obviously, he has a lot of help and buy-in. He's not doing it all by himself. But I don't know, you got to give him some credit for making an impact. He really has.
So we are on the verge, Keith, or we're in the midst of something of massive historical significance, aren't we?
I believe so. Although it ends up being rhetorical when we say that every week, because it's going to stay true. So you have to get down to the next level of detail as to the journey, which we do a lot. And I think we've got to keep doing.
And what would you say to people who just say, I don't have anything to do with AI. I don't want to deal with algorithms. I'm perfectly happy in my own life.
I think it's fine. There's a lot of people in Palo Alto who don't have a TV. They don't suffer for it. They enjoy their life, but they won't be part of making the future. But that's okay. They probably don't want to be.
Well, you and I are part of making the future, aren't we? You are, and I feed off you.
No, we're all making the future, little by little.
Well, we will make the future next week, Keith. Go back to regular scheduling. It's good to be back.
2 weeks, by the way, not next week.
2 weeks, yeah. Well, we won't do this weekend. This weekend, this will be broadcast, and then the following weekend, middle weekend of August, we'll go back to regular scheduling. So great to have you back, Keith, and we'll talk again in about 10 days. Thank you so much.
Adios.